You spend your life preparing for battle overseas, but nothing prepares you for the war waiting at home. I had faced mortars, ambushes, sandstorms that could skin a man's face raw. But nothing hit me harder than what I found when I came back from deployment. The land my grandfather left me, the 10 acres where I grew up, had been sold out from under me. Not by some stranger. Not by the bank. But by the president of my HOA, Karen Cromwell. Her excuse? She said I had unpaid assessments and covenant violations. She claimed the community needed a better owner. But the truth was simpler: greed. She wanted control. What she didn't count on was that I wasn't just a soldier overseas. I was a soldier at home, too. And the only thing repossessed that day wasn't my land, it was her entire empire, stripped bare by sheriffs, marshals, and the same military she thought she could outsmart. But for you to understand how this happened, I need to take you back to the roots of the fight. My name is Mark Thomas, though in the Army they called me Tank. The name stuck because I kept moving forward no matter what hit me. The land I lived on wasn't just dirt fenced off on a map. It was my family's heartbeat. My grandfather had bought it after his own service, a slice of peace outside Austin. He built a red barn with his hands, boards rough cut, rafters soaked in sweat. The air inside always smelled like sawdust, cedar, and worn leather. From that barn window, I saw the pond where I learned to fish, the mesquite pit where neighbors used to roast barbecue, the wide Texas sky that seemed to stretch into forever. To me, it was memory. To my grandfather, it was legacy. To Karen Cromwell? Just real estate. Karen Cromwell wasn't tall, but she carried herself like a monarch. She wore pearls like armor and bylaws like a sword. She had worked her way into the HOA board years ago with smiles and promises of community spirit. But once in, she rewrote rules, stacked the board with her loyalists, and turned Willowbrook into her kingdom. Neighbors whispered about her fines, about the way she used bylaws to break anyone who opposed her. Families moved out just to escape her reach. And the crown jewel of her obsession? My property. The one lot that wasn't fully under her thumb. My grandfather had refused to join the HOA. He'd sold surrounding land to developers, but he held tight to this parcel. When I inherited it, Karen saw an opening. With me deployed, she struck. The call that changed everything. It was during one of those Texas afternoons when storms boil on the horizon. I sat in the barn on a video call with Miller, an investigator from the Texas Attorney General's office. His eyes were heavy with exhaustion, the kind you see on men who've heard too many stories of people crushed by systems. Elena sat beside me, her hand steady on the laptop, keeping the connection alive as thunder rolled closer. "Mr. Thomas," Miller asked, voice gravelly. "You're saying the Willowbrook HOA foreclosed on your property while you were on active duty?" "Yes, sir," I answered, keeping my tone even. I told him how they'd piled up bogus fines. A citation for weeds that didn't exist. A violation for a fence my grandfather had built 50 years before the HOA was even founded. Even fines for the color of my barn door. All the notices were mailed while I was overseas. Elena fought them off as best she could, but they buried her in paperwork and threats. Over $847 in debt, they forced foreclosure. The gavel came down, and by the time I came home, my deed was in Cromwell Holdings, Karen's shell company. But Elena, my rock, didn't just fight fines. She dug deeper. She realized Karen wasn't just targeting me. She was exploiting a loophole in the Service Members Civil Relief Act, the law designed to protect active duty soldiers. Karen twisted it, setting traps for military families. Deployments meant empty houses. Empty houses meant easy prey. She manufactured debts, buried spouses in notices, and snatched homes before anyone could fight back. Miller frowned, flipping papers. "This is significant, but proving intent is tricky. We'll need more than suspicious violations." I leaned forward. "We have more." Because my grandfather hadn't sold everything. When he let go of the outer parcels that became Willowbrook, he kept the mineral rights, oil, gas, and most importantly, water. Not just under my land. Under the whole subdivision. The HOA's lawns, their pools, their sprinklers, technically, they all drew from my rights. Miller's eyes widened. Finally, the leverage we needed. Before I could explain further, the barn door shattered inward. Hinges screeched, wood splintered. Karen Cromwell stood there in her pearls, flanked by 2 enforcers with HOA compliance stitched across their shirts. She smiled like a cat finding cornered prey. "Well, Mark. Back already? Busy spreading lies?" Her men blocked the exit, their arms crossed, muscles tense. On my laptop screen, Miller's face froze in shock. My training kicked in. Threat assessment, 2 hostiles, unarmed but dangerous. 1 primary antagonist. No easy escape. "Karen," I said, voice calm, "you just kicked in my door. You're trespassing. And you've just done it in front of a state official. Her smile flickered, but arrogance masked it fast. She thought she was untouchable. She thought intimidation could win. She was wrong. Within minutes, local cops arrived, called by Karen. She pointed at me and lied through her teeth. He assaulted me. They cuffed me in uniform. But Elena pulled the barn's doorcam footage, showing Karen's foot slamming first. The cuffs came off, the sergeant muttered apologies. Karen smirked like it was a minor setback. But then everything went dark. Lights snapped off. Laptop died. Phone went silent. The hum of the barn's air conditioning cut mid-breath. A jammer. Portable, illegal, but effective. We were isolated. Karen's voice dripped mock sympathy. Seems you're having technical problems, Mark. Don't worry. We're here to help. But my grandfather once told me, when bullies cut the lights, it's because they're afraid of what you'll do when you see clearly. And I was seeing clearly. Elena moved to the back, calm as ever, and fired up the generator. The barn lights flickered back to life. Karen's face twisted. So you've got power, she sneered. Phones still don't work. No one's coming. She was wrong. My help wasn't coming. It was already here. Elena lifted her tablet. Scout is airborne. Our drone's thermal feed painted the street. Trucks rolled in, blocking both ends. Guards set cones and floodlights. Karen had sealed the neighborhood. But neighbors like Jerry, the retired colonel who kept records of every shady deal, were trapped inside with us. And Freddie, the ham radio man with Santa's beard, patched us through the blackout. The whole subdivision was listening. Karen thought she'd isolated me. In truth, she'd united us. Rain hammered the barn. Thunder cracked so loud it rattled the rafters. Karen's thugs rifled through my workshop, looking for excuses to call me non-compliant. Then it came, the sound no tyrant wants to hear. Sirens. Dozens of them. Closer. Louder. Lights flashing across Scout's feed as sheriff cruisers, unmarked SUVs, and U.S. Marshals plowed through Karen's barricades. Trucks scrambled. Guards panicked. Cones went flying. Karen's face drained white. The marshals stormed the barn. Deputies cuffed her men. A marshal stepped forward, badge glinting. Karen Cromwell, you are under arrest for conspiracy, wire fraud, and interference with federal mineral rights. Her pearls snapped as she fought the cuffs. She screamed that she was the HOA, that she was Willowbrook. But her kingdom was gone. Her neighbors stood in the rain, watching her dragged into the mud. By morning, the storm had cleared. The air smelled of cedar and wet earth. Karen was gone, locked in federal custody. The barricades were gone, too. Willowbrook was free. Neighbors filled my grandfather's barn, drinking coffee, talking freely for the first time in years. Scout's footage replayed like a trophy. Jerry's folder of evidence lay open for all to see. Weeks later, a letter arrived from the Department of Justice. My cooperation had exposed an entire network of HOA corruption across counties. Willowbrook was just one battle in a larger war. I folded the letter and placed it in the same desk drawer where my grandfather once stored his deeds. His voice echoed in my memory, land is honest. People aren't. Always own what they can't see. Karen thought she could break me while I was serving my country. She learned the hard way that when you push a soldier, you don't get a victim. You get a war. That's how one HOA president lost everything she thought she controlled. Because in Texas, we don't bow to tyrants. We bury them.